I want to welcome the Mamaroneck Historical Society and thank Larchmont Library for co-sponsoring our event today. It's about exploring the various nations in our area, the Larchmont-Mamaroneck area. So I have muted everyone for now, and midway we'll have some questions, and I believe we'll have questions at the end as well. During that time, we're going to record it. We're not recording the questions in the middle. If you have any questions, please, at least initially, for the section in the middle, type them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer whatever we can. Okay? So we have three representatives here today from the Historical Society, Gail Boyle and John Pritz, who are the co-presidents, as well as Michael Meany. He'll be presenting the program today. So basically, there are over 90 ethnicities that are represented in the Larchmont-Mamaroneck community. And you're going to find out today about what our largest nationalities are, our fastest growing groups, and where in the area they live. I'll speak a little bit about Mike. Mike is a resident of the Rhinebeck section of Mamaroneck. He was a reporter and editor for the Journal News for more than 40 years. He has also taught journalism and communications at Iona College. And since retiring, Mike has combined his love of his local history with his technology skills. So I'd like to welcome everyone, and please begin.
Well, my name is Gail Boyle, and the Historical Society would just like to thank the Mamaroneck Library and the Larchmont Library for co-sponsoring this program. And I'll introduce you also to the other co-president, John Pritz.
I'm John Pritz, and I just want to say a few words about Mike Meany. Jessica has introduced him. What I'd like to say is that he has joined us and done some research that you can find on our website, mamaroneckhistoricalsociety.org, on a number of different topics. And we'll discuss that a little bit later, but let me introduce you to Mike Meany. Mike, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you, Gail. Good evening, everybody. What's the ethnic mix in your neighborhood? My neighbors include folks from Portugal, Italian Americans, German Americans, Albanians, and Taiwanese. When I walk up to Florence Park near me, I hear people speaking English, of course, but also Japanese, Spanish, Italian, and French. So as you heard, if you look at Larchmont-Mamaroneck as a whole, as you just heard, we have about 90 different ethnic groups represented in the population here. So tonight we will look at the largest groups, the fastest growing groups, and where they live. And we're going to use maps like this one here as soon as I share the screen and start the program. There we go. So this map shows the folks who trace their roots to Poland who live here. The dark blue, the darker the blue, the more people live in that particular area here. And those numbers, 360, 226, 166, those are the actual population estimates of people of Polish extraction in the area. So we'll be looking at maps like this all night, and you'll probably get sick of them. But get used to it, because this is where you'll be able to find out the different ethnic groups and where they live in the area and where they live near you. So as I mentioned, this is all from the Census Bureau, and they break it out by census tracts. And these are the census tracts in Larchmont and Mamaroneck. The two red ones, 69 and 70, are the tracts for Mamaroneck Town. This is the town outside the village, both villages, 69 and 70. The yellow one, 71, is the village of Larchmont. That's the village line. Now, some of you may live in areas that have the Larchmont mailing address, but you may actually live in either 69 or 70, because you may live in the Mamaroneck town outside the villages. So you have to check and see which one you're in. The two blue ones and the two green ones are the four tracts that they have for Mamaroneck Village. And the two in blue are the parts of Mamaroneck Village that lie within the town of Mamaroneck. And the two green ones are Ryeneck. That's the part of Mamaroneck Village that lies within the town of Rye. It's also the Ryeneck School District, or part of the Ryeneck School District. So if you have you figured out which one you live in? If not, let's take a closer look and you can figure it out. This is 69. This is one of the Mamaroneck Town tracts. I put the different borders in big type there so you can kind of try to get a handle on which one you're in. This one is basically north and east of Weaver Street in Mamaroneck Town, again, outside the villages. This is the other Mamaroneck Town census tract. This one is the other side of Weaver Street, between Weaver Street and the New Rochelle line, and mainly north or above I-95, except for a couple little areas there that's around Larchmont. And here is Larchmont Village. This is the village of Larchmont. So if you live in the actual village, you're in here, census tract 71. Onto Mamaroneck Village. This is tract 72, and this has basically downtown Mamaroneck, Mamaroneck Avenue, West Boston Post Road area, and Orienta. Here's tract 73, and this includes Washingtonville and Harbor Heights, and the area kind of bordering 95 as it goes through the village. Here's one of the Ryeneck tracts. This is the one above the post road, basically, more or less. And here is 74.02, the other Ryeneck census tract. And this one is the area below the post road, more or less, and Shore Acres. So we're back to the overview here. So I hope you have figured out which tract you're in, and you'll be able to follow all the developments tonight as we trot out these maps. So as I mentioned, this information, these are population estimates that come from the Census Bureau, and they come from one question that the Census Bureau asks, and this is it. What is this person's ancestry or ethnic origin? And this is asked on, it used to be asked in the census in the long form, but in recent decades, it's been asked in a different sampling that they do in off census years called the American Community Survey. And they sample people around every year, and people can write in, they write in the answer here. This is not a multiple choice. They write in what they say is their ancestry or ethnic origin. And they can also write in more than one. And about a third of the people who responded do write in more than one. So that's why you get Irish Americans, Italian Americans, etc. They can put both of those in, and they're both counted by the Census Bureau when they do the population estimates. Okay, now that we've gotten the basics down, we're going to go first to the largest nationalities, and we're going to start with the 7 largest nationalities for the entire area, Larchmont and Mamaroneck area. So this is the entire thing together. So number 7, the 7th largest nationality in Larchmont-Mamaroneck, people who trace their roots to Russia. And they're the census estimate, and these are estimates from 2019, by the way, 2019, based on the community surveys from 2015 to 2019. So they do the sampling, and then they do make estimates of how many people there are. Whether they're exactly 1406, probably not, but it gives you an idea and it gives you a comparison. So it's 1,406 people tracing their roots to Russia, according to the Census Bureau, and here's where they live. Again, this map, the darker the blue, the more people of that particular ancestry live in that census tract. And now you can figure out which census tract is which. In this case, the Mamaroneck Town, the two Mamaroneck Town census tracts have the most people tracing their roots to Russia. And that's 430 people in one of them. That's the number on the lower left is an actual Mamaroneck Town census tract number. The software puts it way down at the bottom there. And then 358 is the other Mamaroneck Town census tract. And then the Larchmont tract, you have 249 people who have Russian ancestry. And then you see the numbers for the lesser numbers for the four Mamaroneck village census tracts. So that's the seventh largest nationality. And I just would put in a note that when we talk about nationalities, these are not just immigrants. This is everybody's nationality. So if you've been here for 4 generations and you trace your roots to Russia, you're in here. If you arrived yesterday from Russia and you're a new immigrant, you're in here. So it's everybody. It's not just immigrants. It's everybody. And now on to number 6, the 6th largest nationality in Larchmont-Mamaroneck, Guatemala. 1,617 residents of the area trace their roots to Guatemala, according to the Census Bureau. And here's where they live. The largest number live in that Washingtonville, Harbor Heights census tract, a big number, 1,207, with a few in the Rhineck, one of the Rhineck tracts next door, and a few scattered elsewhere, and in some census tracts, none. So that's the 6th largest nationality here, Guatemala. 5, these are people who listed their ethnicity or ethnic origin as American or United States, and they were 2,224 of them in 2019, according to the Census Bureau, and here's where they live. Larchmont has the most, again, the darkest blue has the most people of that origin. And then followed, and then actually they're fairly evenly distributed after that. And now on to the 4th largest nationality in the area, England, English, people with English roots, 2,570 of them in 2019, and here's where they live. Larchmont, lots of them live in Larchmont, 733. And then lots of them live in one of the Mamaroneck Town census tracts, 686. And then some scattered in some of the other census tracts. So England, 4th largest nationality. On to the 3rd largest nationality, Germany. Nearly 3,000 local residents trace their roots to Germany. And here's where they live. Mamaroneck Town. The 2 Mamaroneck Town tracts have the most people with German roots, 782 in one and 606 in the other. And then pretty good numbers of German ancestry in Larchmont, 522, and Orienta, 498, and then some elsewhere. And the 2nd largest nationality, Ireland, Irish. People who trace their roots to Ireland, like me, 4,775. Local residents have Irish roots. And here's where they live. Mamaroneck Town has the most in the 2 Mamaroneck Town tracts, over 1,000 in one of the tracts, and nearly 900 in the other one. And then in my tract in Rhineck, 811. So it would be 810 if I weren't here. So there you go. 811 in Rhineck, and then a fair number elsewhere. And finally, the largest nationality in Larchmont-Mamaroneck, can you guess? Italy, by a lot. The Census Bureau estimates 6,674 residents in 2019 had Italian roots, and here's where they live. Rhineck, that Rhineck tract, 1,384 is the most. That's the one above the post road. And then the Washingtonville Harbor Heights tract with 1,118, but very big numbers in every tract in the area. as you would expect with the largest nationality with a lot of people. So those are the top 7 largest nationalities. And now let's take a quick look at the ones a little bit below that. Here's 8 to 14. Again, this is for Larchmont-Mamaroneck as a whole. Poland with 1,200 residents. France, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Japan, Austria, and Greece. Numbers 8 to 14. And now 15 to 21. China, Scotland, Hungary, Peru, Sweden, the Philippines, and Brazil. So that's the top 21 nationalities in Larchmont-Mamaroneck. And you might be wondering, what are the smallest nationalities, the ones with the fewest people here? Here they are. Palestinians, 12, according to the Census Bureau, 10 Syrians, 10 Nigerians, 9 people with roots in Belgium, 7 with roots in Paraguay, 6 each with roots in Vietnam and Jordan. We looked at the area as a whole, but you can also break down the area into individual communities, the town and the 2 villages, and the lineup is a little different depending on which one you're looking at. So let's take a look at the top 10 for the different communities, and we'll take a look first at Mamaroneck Town's largest municipalities. And Ireland is number 1 in Mamaroneck Town, Irish people of Irish ancestry, followed by Italy, Germany, England, Russia, the United States, Poland, France, Sweden, and China. So a lot of the top nationalities in Mamaroneck Town trace their roots to European countries, except for United States and China. And now we'll take a look at Larchmont's. Larchmont's largest nationality, the village of Larchmont's largest nationalities: Italy, England, then Ireland, Germany, the United States, France, Russia, Greece, Poland, and Scotland. All European countries, except for the United States. The top nationalities in Larchmont, tracing their roots to European countries, largely. And finally, it's a little more varied in Mamaroneck Village. Italy is the tops in Mamaroneck Village, followed by Ireland, but then Guatemala, the United States, Germany, Mexico, England, Puerto Rico, France, and Peru. So you have 4 Latin or South American countries in the top 10 in Mamaroneck Village, so it's a little more diverse. That's our look at the largest nationalities. Coming up, don't go away, because I mean, you got your computer on already, so don't go away. We're going to come back with the fastest growing nationalities in the area. And I'm going to hand it off to John to take us through our little break here from all this maps and numbers and charts. And oh my God, it's like math class here. John?
Thank you, Mike. It's kind of interesting if you look at the numbers, how the distribution actually works. Now, these are all modern numbers, and these are all people answering the census based on who they think they are. You know, the people that are American, for instance. All right, well, I'm not Italian anymore. I'm from America. All right. So the data is a little bit skewed in that regard. All right. How are people thinking of themselves, and how do they view themselves? You know, it happens to be something that a lot of the data can be used by the municipalities if they, you know, actually looked. And a lot of the data that Mike has accumulated here you can dig much deeper into it if you were to go onto our website and actually look at what he's got out there instead of just what we're showing you. You can do your own research here. Gail?
Yes, John, thank you. What you see on the screen right now is the diversity mural that is displayed in downtown Mamaroneck Village. And it's interesting how that ended up there, because when we went to decide what types of murals to put up, we met as a large group in the community, and people took all sorts of suggestions and ideas to the table. And the question was, what is it that you value most about living here? What is it about our community that makes it special to you? And many people said it was the diversity of the community. And so that's why we're really thrilled that Mike has explored this question with some hard data. John, are there any questions in the chat box that you wanted to respond to?
Not just yet, but I see somebody typing, so.
Okay, so this is our pause for you to ask any questions about the data that's come so far in Mike's presentation, and then we'll move on to the next section. Shall we move on?
Wait, 1 second. Mike, somebody is asking, this is current data, all right? They're asking about the Italians, as a matter of fact. Do we have any idea of what brought certain groups to Mamaroneck?
I would not have an idea for that because, you know, people who've been here longer, know more about the community would be the best ones to answer about that.
Well, let me give that a shot. You know, and I know from my family in Mamaroneck was Italian. They came here from a certain location and they brought their family, all right? And it was all people that were familiar with the area, loved the area, and talked up the area to their family that were in Italy, all right? And I would imagine that the same thing happened with the other nationalities, all right? Because people come if they know that somebody they know is comfortable here. You know, people want to know beforehand where they're going to end up is going to work. And if it's working for their family, it'll work for them.
We also know that many waves of people came obviously because of job opportunities. And so depending on the era in which a certain ethnic group or nationality came to the community, it was because they were needed and they were employed and they made a life here.
Right.
And actually, just to end with the diversity mural, the story behind this mural speaks to the first Italian-American mayor, the first person elected. And it was considered an honor for the first Italian-American among his fellow people to become, you know, such a respected member of the community. So it's interesting as you see each wave come in and become part of the community. So if no more questions, Mike, you want to pick it up again?
Okay, let's go on to the second half here. And this time we're going to look at the 7 fastest growing nationalities. And this is again for all of Larchmont-Mamaroneck together. And number 7, China. These are people with roots in China. And I'll explain this more number-centric chart here. This is the change from 2010 to 2019. So the first column of numbers there, 343 people with Chinese ancestry were estimated by the Census Bureau to be here in 2010. And in 2019, that number had increased to 539. And that's a change of 196 in that third column, which is the column we're looking at as we do the top 7 here. So we're going to look at now the where those 539 people who trace their roots to China live in the area. And again, you'll see these maps again. The darker the blue, the more people of that ancestry, and those numbers there are the actual estimates of how many people of, in this case, Chinese ancestry live in the different census tracts. So Larchmont has the most, 160. And then Mamaroneck Town with 143 in one tract and 135 in another. And then lesser numbers in the 4 Mamaroneck village tracts. That's the 7th fastest growing nationality. Now on to the 6th, the Dominican Republic. There was an increase of 217 residents who traced their roots to the Dominican Republic in 2019 from 2010. And here's where they live. The downtown Mamaroneck, West Boston Post Road, Orienta tract with the longest name in history. 161 people live in that area. Again, the Census Bureau does not break it down any farther than this, so we don't know where within the tract people live, because that's all you get. So it's just in the tract, that whole area. And then followed by Larchmont and the Washingtonville Harbor Heights tracts, both have 76. And then very few in the other tracts. That's the Dominican Republic, 6th fastest growing nationality in Larchmont-Mamaroneck. Now on to number 5, Sweden. We had 218 in 2010 with tracing their roots to Sweden. And that was up to 445 in 2019. And that's an increase of 227. And here's where they live. Mamaroneck Town, the town outside the villages. One tract has 152 and the other tract 151. And then Larchmont and the Rhineck above the Post Road tract each had 51. And now on to the 4th fastest growing nationality, Greece. You wouldn't predicted some of these, just seemed to be out of nowhere. But anyway, so Greece in 2010, we had 298 people tracing their roots to Greece. And then in 2019, it had jumped to 560. And that was an increase of 262. And the 560 in 2019, here's where they live. Larchmont, to a great extent, 238. And then 119 in one of the Mamaroneck Town tracts, and smaller numbers in the other tracts. And the 3rd fastest growing nationality, Philippines. Increased 274 from 2010 to 2019. And in 2019, there were 394 local residents who traced their roots to the Philippines, and here's where they live. Larchmont, 190. Again, the darker blue, the darker the blue, the more people from that ethnicity. And then the Rhineck district, the Rhineck tract below the Post Road and Shore Acres, 97. That was the second most. And the 2nd fastest growing nationality, Japan, which is why I guess I'm hearing Japanese in my park. Went from 401 in 2010 to 723 in 2019, and that was an increase of 322. And the 723 who in 2019, here's where they live. Larchmont, 186. My tract in Rhineck, above the Post Road, 182. And then that downtown Mamaroneck, West Boston Post Road, Orienta tract, 149. And finally, the fastest growing nationality in Larchmont-Mamaroneck, Guatemala. People who trace their roots to Guatemala. We saw an increase of 662 from 2010 to 2019. And the total in 2019 was, the estimated total was 1,617. And here again is where they live. The largest number, the big majority live in this the Washingtonville Harbor Heights tract, 1,207. Okay, that's the top 7, let's take a look at the next fastest growing nationalities, again, for all of Larchmont-Mamaroneck. Austria, 168, Sudan, 164, El Salvador, 163. These are the increases between 2010 and 2019. And then Cuba, Hungary, New Zealand, Egypt, Romania, Taiwan, Argentina, Turkey, Pakistan, and Canada. Okay, once again, the mix is going to be different if you look at the individual communities. So let's take a look at Mamaroneck Town's fastest growing nationalities, the top 10 from 2010 to 2019. Sweden, number 1, and then China, Greece, United States, Guatemala, New Zealand, Cuba, Romania, Hungary, and Portugal. And again, some of the numbers are mighty small when you get to this point in terms of the increases and in terms of the numbers of people. And now Larchmont's fastest growing nationalities from 2010 to 2019. People who said their ethnicity was American or the United States, increase of 331 from 2010 to 2019. And then Greece, the Philippines, Japan, China, Romania, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Cuba, and India. And finally, that was the village of Larchmont's fastest growing nationalities. And finally, the Mamaroneck village fastest growing nationalities. Guatemala, number 1, with an increase of 647 in the village. And then Ireland, Irish ancestry, increase of 466. And then Japan, England, Sudan, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, France, Brazil, and Hungary. And that's our look at the largest nationalities and the fastest growing nationalities. And this would be a good time, if you got questions, to post them so John can check them out and see if we can get some answers for you. Post them on the chat. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to let you know about, if you want to do some more exploring, as John mentioned, here's where you can do it. The Mamaroneck Historical Society website, and it's mamaroneckhistoricalsociety.org/nationalities. And there is a lot more information. I could have talked for hours, but I knew you had other things to do. But you can go on and look at maps, these maps for every ethnic group. And also over multiple years, we have these maps and information estimates, not only for 2019, but also for 2010, 2000, 1990, 1980, and 1970. So if you wanted to track, say, one group over the years and see where they were living in 1980 and where they're living now, and if it's been a change, that would be the place to do it. And we also have a full list of the changes in the ethnic groups between 2010 and 2019. Some went decreased and others increased. And you can break that down by the individual community as well. And we also have a world map that shows you, gives you a little different perspective. It shows you where, which countries around the world that people in the various communities here trace their roots to. So a different perspective. John, got any questions?
A couple.
Okay.
And one of them is, are there any numbers as far as ethnic restaurants that we can associate with the numbers that you're presenting?
That would be not something I looked into, but certainly if you think about the different groups, there are restaurants for many of them representing many of those groups around. I mean, you think of even the number of Italian restaurants for starters, but everybody loves Italian food anyway, whether you're Italian or not. But we have a French bakery downtown. We have all kinds of other ethnic kind of restaurants. There's a Peruvian place on the avenue in Mamaroneck, and other things. So, but I don't know. I didn't try to trace the numbers versus the numbers of population, because a lot of times restaurants are looking to the general public, not just their own particular ethnic group.
Right. And the other side of that is that some of the numbers that you're talking about might be some of the people with the ethnic restaurants, right? That having lived in the community. But
Will be.
I would think that the number of ethnic restaurants would sort of be consistent with the ethnicities that we've got, the diversity. And I think that's true. The other question has to do with Native Americans. Who were the original residents of Mamaroneck? And they're asking what the Native American tribe that resided here was. I'll answer that, I guess. That's a moving target, depending on what year you're talking about. The tribes changed and they moved. They weren't stable. Now, traditionally, they talk about the Siwanoys, but that's an argumentative point, all right? Because there were other tribes that existed here. And they were all Algonquin-speaking tribes. The Delaware were farther west across the Hudson. They are also described as Lenape, Lenape tribes. But traditionally, they talk about the Siwanoy, all right? And the Siwanoy were actually a little bit, I won't say militaristic. I'll say they made wampum, all right, from the shells that they found locally on the Sound Shore here and also in Long Island. And they were a little bit more warrior-like than other tribes because they wanted to protect their interests and their products. But that's another story, all right? Any other questions out there?
Can I add something, John? Was a question. I didn't write the question in, but it was really striking to me at the time, a question I had, and that is, what is the population? Mike's giving us numbers of number of people that are, assumed or projected to live in a particular area. And it's hard to judge what that really means without sort of putting it next to what the population of that area is. So I quickly looked up the village of Mamaroneck in 2019 had 19,217 people. And as opposed to Larchmont, which is 1/3 the size of Mamaroneck. So Larchmont has 6,219 residents. And of course, the town, I'm kind of surprised by it. I had to look it up a few times, but it's 29,563. So when we saw some of those big numbers, the numbers look big, but I wonder if the percentage of population, is another lens to look at it through, because certainly the impact of large numbers of people moving into a community is very important, for the community to understand the impact on those people and on the community as a whole. So I just found that interesting. Hope I have the numbers right.
The Mamaroneck Town number you mentioned includes the villages?
No.
So it's 12, I get 12,000 on the Mamaroneck Town outside.
How do you get, so 19 plus 6 is Mamaroneck Village and Larchmont Village, they considered the town?
Well,
It's part of the town.
It's part of the town, but sometimes they list the town and they include the villages and so and population, sometimes they don't.
Well, I would love for somebody to tell me the right answer. I looked it up twice in 2 different ways. I searched it in 2 different ways. But that is an interesting way to look at it.
I can also tell you what the populations of the tracts are, which actually then clarifies it.
Go ahead.
Basically, most of the tracts have about 6,000 residents, except 3 of the Mamaroneck Village tracts have about 5,000 residents, give or take. So those Mamaroneck Town, the 2 tracts of Mamaroneck Town do add up to about 12,000. The town outside.
That seems right.
So,
But then how do
Okay,
they get how do they get the 29,000? Because if you add Larchmont to it, it doesn't make sense, but that's okay. I like 12,000 better.
I've got another question. All right, Mike, you've done some research on our past elections in the last 175 years. Have you seen how the demographics influence the voting over time? Do you want to answer that?
I have not really linked those up. I have noted that the Mamaroneck voting pattern is almost identical to the Westchester County as a whole voting pattern, except for 1 or 2 elections. So, and these are long-term things. The Republicans were in basically dominant for about 100 years, and the Democrats were dominant for some years in the 1860s through the 1880s, and then since I think the Bill Clinton election, with only 1 or 2 exceptions. So I don't know if the demographics are playing into that, or there's there's a bigger change nationally in terms of suburban voters that is coming into play there.
Very good. Any other questions?
We might want to let people know where they can see that. We have, I also looked into every election, every presidential election since 1848 and how Westchester County and Mamaroneck Village voted. And that's also on the Mamaroneck Historical Society website if you want to get delve into some of those numbers.
And the information there is absolutely mind-blowing, all right? Because you're going to find some things that you wouldn't expect to be true. You know, Mamaroneck didn't vote for Abraham Lincoln, for instance.
Or Franklin Roosevelt or John Kennedy or
Right.
anything like that. So
Yeah.
some of the big names in presidential history did not carry Mamaroneck.
John, do you see the other question in chat?
No, that's it.
Well, someone just added a very interesting point that my neighborhood pays taxes to both the village of Mamaroneck and the town of Mamaroneck. So we are counted as both. That's interesting. So that's why that number is skewed in that way, because Rhinebeck does not play, Rhinebeck section of Mamaroneck Village does not pay to Mamaroneck Town.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. That's it.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you want to unmute people in case they want to share anything? What do you think, Paul?